1-844-500-4242. Joanne, you're next with Howie Carr on the General Communications listener line. Go ahead.
Yes, hi, thank you. I was just wondering if you might know how much money do you think Bernie Sanders was paid by the Clinton Foundation or campaign to campaign with her, considering that they tried to destroy him? And the second thing, quick thing, I think that Donald Trump should really do something extraordinary this weekend. He should go to Walter Reed. He should have some of his apprentice guys give a little concert, do a little basketball. I think he has to offset the fact that they're giving a free or a cheap Beyonce concert and Jay-Z. I think he needs to do something really extraordinary. Give out turkeys, but he's got to show his face to the people.
Don't you think all he needs to do, Joanne, is point out that here are these people. They're so concerned about the police, and they're so concerned about my rude, crude language, and yet he's campaigning with this guy Jay-Z, who has said so many worse things than me, and he's recorded them, and not only that, he's made millions of dollars with these obscene, anti-police, misogynistic rap lyrics. I think that's all he needs to do, Joanne. Thanks for the call. We appreciate it. Joining us now on the line is Frank Guinta. He's the Republican congressman from the Seacoast District of New Hampshire. He's in a tight race. This is his fourth race against the same Democrat opponent. So far, Frank has won two of the fights, including the last one in 2014. And he's in a tight race again on Tuesday. The Republicans are doing better in New Hampshire, but he needs your help. And Frank, glad to have you on the show here in the final days.
Thanks, Howie, for having me on. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. Why should people vote for you instead of your opponent, Carol Shea Porter?
Well, she's been running since 2005 for this seat, and I think that her public policy approach is very out of step with New Hampshire. She voted for Obamacare, for the Dodd-Frank legislation. She supported cap and trade. She voted for the largest tax hike in history while she was in Congress. Really, I don't think that's in line with the families and the needs of New Hampshire. I, on the other hand, I served as our state's largest city, Manchester, as mayor. I'm in my second term in Washington, and I've always favored local control, shrinking the size and scope of the federal government, making sure that we return individual rights. I focus on reducing the debt and deficit, focusing on getting rid of the regulatory climate that we have. It's over $2 trillion impact to our economy, and tax reform both on the business and the individual side, trying to simplify the code and allow people to keep more of their hard-earned money. So there's a clear contrast between the two of us, and I look forward to winning a tight but winnable election on Tuesday.
And people are going to say, "Well, you've had your problems over the last couple of years, and they don't really, they don't want to support you. They're down on Kelly Ayotte for different reasons." I mean, how do you tell people who are going to go and they're going to say, "I'm for Trump. I'm a big Trump guy, but I don't know what I'm going to do down ballot." What do you tell them?
Well, I tell them, first of all, I've endorsed Donald Trump. Not everybody in New Hampshire has done that. I'm a team player. I think it's important when we have a binary choice to make sure that we support the individual that's going to be for families. Look, I went through a primary process again. It was the nominee, and we've had Republicans coalesce behind my reelection efforts. But people know me, Howie. They know the dedication that I have to the issues that matter most. And in New Hampshire right now, I'm sure you are aware of the heroin and opioid crisis that we have. I'm chairman of the Congressional Task Force to combat the heroin and opioid addiction problems that we're having. And we've been able to deliver with the Carroll legislation $192 million a year for the next 5 years, and we found a way to pay for it without increasing the short-term deficit or long-term debt. So people want that kind of results-oriented, driven individual. That's what I've accomplished, and that's what I'll continue to do.
And one of the big problems with opioids is people get hooked on painkillers, and then they can't get refill their prescriptions, and they find out it's too expensive, so they sort of downshift to heroin. or fentanyl, and the heroin and the fentanyl are coming in from the southern border. And the Democrats basically top to bottom want to keep the borders wide open. I mean, you can't really do much about this problem if you have open borders.
Howie, I went to the southern border in April, and I actually saw there are two types of fences we have. One that's 18 feet high, that's made of steel, that's impenetrable. But then down the road, there literally is barbed wire with those green stakes you can buy at Home Depot holding up the fence. I actually have a picture of me walking through it. So, when people say that they want open borders like Hillary Clinton did or Carol Shea Porter does, it's not just talking about allowing illegal immigration. They're allowing heroin to cross the border by the three different drug cartels that are bringing almost all of that heroin into New England. So you've got to secure the border. And it's, I think, the first thing that Donald Trump will do, and the first thing that we would do in Congress to support that effort.
You're right on the front line of voter fraud on Tuesday in southern New Hampshire. I mean, that's where they're going to. It's going to be ground zero down there. What are you trying to do to stop it? I mean, we know it's going to be bad.
It is. We're anticipating the same thing that happened 4 years ago, where people were being bussed up from Massachusetts into New Hampshire. So we've got poll checkers at every place this time. There's a fraud line that we can provide to your listeners, after I get off the phone. So people, if they identify fraud, they can call the hotline. There is a greater level of intensity at the state level to try to make sure that there is no voter fraud. But this is a serious issue. There were very little prosecutions occurred last time around as a result of voter fraud, but we identified thousands of people that were voting fraudulently. And this has got to be about free and fair elections. It can't be about trying to tip the scales in favor of the Democrats simply because they don't mind trying to bring people up, busing people up from Massachusetts.
603 says, bleep heroin, illegal immigration is the biggest issue. Well, it's kind of a related issues, wouldn't you say, Frank?
Well, I think, yeah, they are related issues. I mean, look, I want to secure the border for both reasons. Number one, because I believe in legal immigration, and we've got to stop the illegal crossings. But I also want to make sure that we're not allowing more heroin to come into the United States. We're only interdicting 3 to 5% of that heroin at the southern border. It is cheaper than a six-pack of beer. So we've got to secure the border for both reasons, to make sure that we support legal immigration and make sure that we stop the heroin coming through the border.
Electric bill, this is from 603. Electric bill just went up 14%. What's Frank going to do about that one?
Well, first of all, we've got to make sure that Northern Pass gets completed. I think there's an ability to find that middle ground of appropriate burying of the lines.
Yeah,
so
she's a Luddite on that issue.
Impact.
She's a Luddite on that issue, isn't she? I mean, she doesn't care about the power issues.
I mean,
go ahead.
Since 2014, we've lost 3,000 megawatts of generation in New Hampshire. That's a problem. And the caller is right, or the emailer is right. Our rates are through the roof. They're amongst the highest in the nation. So it's not just the residents who are getting hurt. It's impacting negatively our ability to grow our economy. So, as a result, you have economic stagnation in the state. So you've got to have greater energy sources. We've got to bring more gas, from the Midwestern states up into New Hampshire and New England, and that will start to reduce the cost. But right now, we've got to replace that 3,000 megawatts of generation before you start to see a reduction.
Here's another one from 603. Why is your opponent afraid to meet with the constituents?
I've heard this concern a lot. Look, I'm open to meeting with anybody and everybody. I think most people know that I'm very accessible. But Carol Shea Porter, for whatever reason, when she served, opted not to make herself available. She would have town hall meetings where you'd have to tell in advance, you'd have to RSVP, you'd have to submit your question. I mean, it was almost like a process where they were vetting you to see if they would allow you in. I have an open town hall. Anybody can come anytime they want. But it's just the differences between the two of us. Howie, I'm accessible. I'm focused on helping families, and I think she just listens to Nancy Pelosi and spends a lot more time in Washington than she does in New Hampshire.
Frank Guinta will be broadcasting live on Monday night from our affiliate in Manchester, your hometown where you were the mayor, WFEA. Stop on by if you want to in the afternoon, okay?
I will. I'll be in town, so we'll try to set that up. I'd love to come over.
Okay, that's great. That's Congressman Frank Guinta, the congressman from the Seacoast District of New Hampshire, and he's also the former mayor of Manchester. He's in his fourth, count them, 4 ballots. Not even like the rubber match. They've had multiple matches. I've never heard of 4 people running against each other 4 times. He and Carol Shea Porter are running against each other for the 4th time, and he's right now the incumbent. He won in I guess he won in 2014 and 2010, and she won in 2012, I guess, and I guess she beat somebody else in 2008, and so this is the 4th time they've been facing off against one another. All right, here, 1-844-500-4242. This hour of the Howie Carr Show is brought to you in part by Dependable Lock Service. Own a gun? You need a Liberty Safe from Dependable Lock Service. Visit libertysafenewhampshire.com. I'm Howie Carr.
There's only one Howie Carr.